And right now, two European satellites are hurtling through space together on a very ambitious project. Maybe they're humming, "Once upon a time I was falling in love, but now I'm only falling apart." Because right now, about 37,000 miles above the Earth, that is their destination. These satellites eventually will try to create a solar eclipse of their hearts, or at least one of their hearts, because those two satellites, they're only going to be about 500 feet apart, and they're going to line up with one directly eclipsing the sun for science. And they took off today from a space center in India. It is the first time anything like this has been tried, and here's how they say it's supposed to work.
The satellites will be able to maneuver themselves to line up with the sun. One spacecraft will cast a shadow onto another to produce the solar eclipse effect. If the two are not perfectly aligned, then the bright disk of the sun will not be hidden by the instrument, and the corona will be obscured by its bright light.
And that corona, that's kind of like the sun's version of its spicy atmosphere, if you will. Scientists want to know why it's so hot, why it spits out so much space plasma into the universe. So joining us now to explain all of this is astrophysicist and NASA advisor, Dr. Paul Sutter. Thanks so much for being with us, Doctor. A lot of calculating that went into this to make sure everything lines up correctly. If it does, is there any chance that we'll be able to see it from telescopes here on Earth?
Oh, yes. These two satellites are going to be visible to telescopes here on the Earth, but they'll just be tiny dots of light. Remember, these spacecraft individually are not very large. They're roughly the size of like an SUV each. And they are going to be 37,000 miles away from the Earth and flying very close together, like you mentioned, about 500 feet away. But they have to maintain a precision flying formation with a tolerance of less than a millimeter. To give you a sense of scale, that's like placing these two spacecraft, one in LA and one in New York City, and being precise down to the level of a city block.
Wow. And the main goal here, walk us through why the sun's corona is so important and why we can't learn about it when we have solar eclipses here on Earth.
Absolutely. The solar corona is the sun's atmosphere, and it's perhaps the least understood part of the sun. It is incredibly hot. It has a temperature of over 1,000,000 degrees, and yet it's so thin that you could swim through it without even noticing that extreme temperature. And the solar corona is the home of solar weather. This is where solar storms are born. These are where flares are born. And these flares and these storms can race out throughout the solar system. They can affect us here on the Earth. They can disrupt electrical systems. They can disrupt satellites. And so we need to predict these storms. We need to understand how these storms start. And we can only do that by studying where they get started in the corona. And we can do that during solar eclipses on the Earth, but that only happens once every few years. With these satellites, we can create an eclipse on demand.
And Paul, this is a huge day for all of us here on Earth, and especially the European Space Agency. But like here in the United States, today we learned Artemis 2 has now been pushed at least a year down the road, right? Which means the return to the moon is even like now maybe mid-2027. What are your thoughts on the delay?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, but also not unexpected. But we have to keep in mind the original Artemis program, when it was first developed during the Obama administration, when it was first shaped out, set a goal for landing humans on the moon in 2028. And then Vice President Mike Pence, who came in with Donald Trump's first term, said, no, let's make it 2024. And NASA's like, wait, what? And so we've been trying to maintain that goal, but now we've been pushing it back. So we're actually going back to the original plan that we had, that NASA thought was a reasonable timeline for getting us back onto the moon. We're going to do it one way or the other. We're going to do it one of these years. We are making slow but steady progress. It is going to happen, and delays are part of the process because we are developing new technologies.
And we are looking forward to that. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us as always.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.